What if I told you that some of the best single malts aren't coming out of Scotland? And what if I told you that American single malt didn't even become a category until like a year ago, 2 years ago? I don't know. Is it the newest trend? Or is it something that's been there forever and we're just now catching up to it? Let's check it out.
Welcome to the Whiskey Shop Podcast.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me back on this show. Today, we are going to talk all about American Single Malt. Now, if you guys know me ever, you know that I love American Single Malt, and I've had many American Single Malt producers on my show. But let's just kind of take a step back and see why, what, where, and how. But first, we're doing whiskey things, right? So I'm going to open a said American Single Malt. But this is just not any American Single Malt. This is a Texas Single Malt. It's not just any. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Stupid. I haven't even cracked this bottle open yet. Those of you on the Patreon are going to see me struggling to open him up. ASMR. Ready? Cork pop. Ooh, nice one. So I'm not going to tell the listeners what I'm drinking. I'm going to show it up for the Patreon. Very nice, very nice. Now, the one thing I will say about this bottle is it does not have a synthetic cork. That's a little disheartening. I'm not going to lie. Why am I talking in like weird accents? Now this is stupid. What am I doing? Okay. Cat's out of the bag, guys. We're drinking Balcones. Yeah, we're drinking some Balcones. This is the Balcones Texas 1 Single Malt. This is a single barrel because I'm bougie. This is whiskey finished in a wine barrel. Listen to the proof on this bad boy. 67.7% alcohol. This is a single barrel collection. Number 13097, fully matured in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks for 6 years and 6 months. This was a distillery only. I picked up myself 718 of 25. We are going to enjoy this pour. We're going to talk about American Single Malt and what makes it so special. Now, let's do a little history, and then I'm going to sip my whiskey. Now, I would tell you the color on this whiskey is like molasses. It is so dark. And just the smell of it. That's all I'm going to... I'm just teasing you guys. Sorry. Okay, so when... I've said this multiple times, over and over again. History is what we come from. And then we move forward, right? So we have to learn from the past to get to the future. So in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. No, in the beginning, there was man. No. In the beginning of U.S. history, the settlers who came over were from overseas, were from Europe. Not the indigenous, obviously. So they knew how to make single malt whiskey. Or malt whiskey. So they brought that knowledge over here. But malt in the areas that they were, it would grow, but it was a very harsh climate. It didn't really like it that much. So they found that the indigenous people had grown a lot of corn, and corn was way easier to work with, and it tasted pretty good. And then they saw that rye was rocking and rolling. So they used rye. So that's where bourbon got its start, right? My headphones are squeaking. It's weird. Oh, it's my shirt. Oh, that's what it is. I don't know what I'm doing, obviously. It's my first day. Okay, this is episode 140, just to let you know. Anyway, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how we're doing it, but we are. There's going to be some changes afoot on my foot. No, there's going to be changes afoot in the near future. We're going to have some different episodes. So just be aware and prepared for those. I'm not going to tell you what they are. You'll see it when you see it. Okay, so back then they were trying to make single malt. They couldn't make single malt. Well, they could, but yeah, anyway, doesn't matter. Semantics, things happen. Bourbon took over. Bourbon and rye took over. So they just kind of dropped it and saw that people liked the bourbon and rye profile. So it was sweeter. And the rye had a lot of heritage behind it. It grew very easy. And then they were using some wheat as well. They didn't really use a whole lot of malted barley. So it wasn't a long time. I mean, there's distilleries, I'm sure, that were making single malt or malt whiskey in America, but they're not on record that I know of. It wasn't until, 1980. Let that sink in. 1776, right, is when we were established. It wasn't until 1980. Year I was born. I knew I was born for a reason. Helped him make the American Single Malt. Still doing it. I don't know. Sunday afternoon. Whatever. All right, I'm going to get into this whiskey. Oh, that's sherry. That just tastes like sherry. That tastes like sherry. I've been sitting in the sherry bath for 6 years. I just taste like sherry now. It's hot. It's hot and spicy. It's very good. It's very good. It's kind of overwhelming me, actually. Wow. That is so sherried. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love it. It is a lot of sherry. So if you do not like sherry, you're not going to like this pour. I'm going to actually sample this out to a couple of listeners out there. If you know, because I feel like they would like it. And then we'll go from there. I'm really bummed that I already sent one of the persons that I wanted to send this to. I had already sent them a package, like literally 2 days ago. So then you have to wait till the next round. I'll save you a sample. Don't worry. If you know who you are too, so I'll save you a sample. Okay, getting back to it. Man, that sherry is just sitting in my mouth. It's so nice. I did bring my water. Oh my God, it's literally right here. I'm such a dummy. All right. Don't you hate it when Facebook messages you and says, hey, remember your message with this dude that you talked to one time 6 years ago? I don't care. Anyway, back to American Single Malt. Back to my American Single Malt. I do have notes. I wrote down so many notes on American Single Malt. It's not even funny. This could be part 1. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. I'm not going to keep you guys all night, all day, all year. Balcones was one of the first single malts to come around in Texas. They were the first in Texas. They are creating absolutely fantastic single malts. Here's the issue with Balcones that hopefully everybody understands and they get. Balcones doesn't care. They don't care if you like them or not. They are like a lot of the bourbon brands. We're going to do us. If you like it, great. If you don't. And that's kind of the Texas way, isn't it? We're going to do us. Cool. No. Okay. So, like I said, bourbon and rye were king. Barley was mostly for beer. They would bring barley over from Europe and just make beer out of it. There was a lot of distillers in the early, say the 80s, right? Or the 70s even, that were like, hey, it would be cool to make a whiskey out of our beer wash. then, they use barley in making whiskey. So it's not like you're not using some, you're just not using 100% barley. So one of the very first distilleries that came online, we have already had on the podcast, which is so amazing. So amazing. I'm so glad to have them. Clear Creek. Yeah. Steve McCarthy. Steve McCarthy was the first, semantics at this point. He released the first Oregon Single Malt in 1996. It was a tiny little niche thing. They had no national push at all. They were just selling around what they had. And then they were really inspired by Islay and their peat profile, but they used Pacific Northwest peat. And see, I don't even know if we talked about that on the podcast, because when I talked to Caitlin, we talked about all of Clear Creek, Hood River, the whole gamut, because she sent over apple brandy and stuff like that. So we couldn't just talk about McCarthy's, right? Which is my favorite brand that they have. Even though that trails in, even though it's a source whiskey, it's pretty freaking good. You put that in an old fashioned, it is really, really nice. The flavors on it are really good. I think that Oregon oak did something to it. Anyway, so they were kind of the first. And then St. George Spirits, if you guys, I'm trying to get them on as well. They started playing with malt in the 90s as well. And then Stranahan's came in. They were founded in 2004. So we're getting into the new millennia. But they became one of the nation's first available American single malts. They were really good on marketing, and they could get the product out to people. Now, Balcones, they were Texas size flavor. They had mesquite smoking on some of their things. It's actually scrub oak. There was big temperature swings and bold maturation. Westland came in the 2010s, and they had a terroir first philosophy. They used local barley, or tried to, Garyana oak casks from the Pacific Northwest peat, similar to what Clear Creek was doing. So let's talk a little bit about what makes it American single malt, right? Well, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is it's made in America, right? But the definition by the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission in 2016 is, and it states this: 100% malted barley, one distillery, mash distilled and aged in the United States, no higher than 160 proof distillation, no larger than 700-liter oak barrels, and a minimum of at least 80 proof in the bottle. That is pretty standard. That was in 2016. So it wasn't a category yet. That was just a standard that they had. 160, the 160 on the proof. But this one says 700-liter oak barrels. Just barrels. Doesn't have to be new. Doesn't have to be used. It can be either. Now, this Balcones is in an oak barrel. It's just in a French oak barrel, or a whatever oak it was that held the PX. A lot of times PX is in French oak or Hungarian oak, but it does not state. Let me double check, because I don't want to be a liar. Yeah, it does not say on here what exactly it is, what type of oak. But normally PX is that. Anyway. So the TTB recognized a recognition push. I'm sorry, I can't read my own thing. 2022 proposal ruling was a milestone. The differences from Scotch, the barley variations. Okay, so we're going to get into that for a second. 2-row barley, 6-row barley, and heritage grains. Okay, so in Scotland, they are doing a little bit of this now, But back in the day, when Scotch was doing their thing, for 100 and whatever years, they just used commodity, kind of like we do with corn. They used a commodity 6-row barley, or what we call distiller's malt. They didn't really care. They wanted the cask maceration, and they wanted to develop a clean spirit. And if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments down below. There were some distilleries that were doing different things, and they were using I know that Balvenie did one that was in New Oak, and what's the other one? Oh Lord, there's a couple of other ones that are doing New Oak, but that's really the variation that they had. Am I putting it in a sherry cask? Am I putting it in a second fill bourbon cask? Am I putting it in a third fill Sauternes barrel? It didn't matter. They were using used oak no matter what, and they were just using commodity grain. They didn't really care about the quote-unquote mash bill, because even if it's 100% malted barley, it can still have a mash bill. And so American Single Malt took that from the beer boom that was going about that time as well. Craft beer, obviously. The craft beer boom was going, and guess what they were playing with? Yeah, the varietals of different types of barley, the caramel pilsners, the acid malt, the whatevers, chocolate and stouts and all the things, right? Now they were also playing with hops, which there's no hops in this whiskey, right? But it gave such a different flavor, but it also gave a different mouthfeel, right? So that cannot distill over, depending upon how you're distilling it. So I can tell you at Balcones, they use pot distillation. That's how they do it. They're huge. Don't get me wrong. They're like 1 million gallons. They're not 1 million, but they're big. And they mimic what they were doing in Scotland. They mimic that. They are huge vessels. They distill them, and then they distill them again. And that's it. And they are distilling off. I don't know if they're distilling on or off the grain, because in Scotland, most of the times they distill off the grain. You're distilling just the beer, right? Sorry. I'm trying not to get too nerdy, right? But this is just an overview. This is just a thing. So, cask diversity: new charred cask, wine cask, beer barrels, exotic woods. That's some of the differences that they had. Climate-driven maturation: Texas heats versus the Washington's coolness. Smoke source: mesquite, applewood, cherrywood, not just peat. Understand that. Not just peat. So when you think of single malt, don't think of a peated whiskey, right? Because this single malt is not peated at all. It's not smoked. It's not anything. It is just barley that was distilled and put in a PX sherry barrel for 6.5 years. And it's so, oh my God, it's like fig, plum, spice, a lot of spice. There's that oak. It's not over oaked, but like the oak is really present, which you would think it's a used cask. How is it so present? The Texas heat. Middle of Waco. It's hot, brother. Especially like right now in the shed. Luckily, it's cool. It's 85.9 degrees in the shed right now. I'm about 2.5 hours away from Waco. So just understand that. And I'm in the shed with the air conditioner going, blowing on me. So just think if this shed didn't have the air conditioner, we're pushing 90 plus. I have my little infinity barrel right here behind my head. You guys can see it if you're on the feed. That is my sherried bourbons. It had sherried single malts in it first, and then I put bourbon in it. So now it's sherried bourbon, whatever. We're going to let that sit. We'll take a couple samples. I think I sent a couple samples to some people. Let me know what you think. If you had got a sample of the Infinity Barrel 2.0, I think I put 2.0 on it. Anyway, and if you want a sample, let me know in the comments down below. I have almost 2 gallons of liquor back there, so I'd be glad to do that. So in 2010, the craft whiskey boom gives single malt momentum. Awards start rolling in for Balcones, Westland, and Stranahan's. They get international attention. Now showing up in the UK, Japan, and European specialty shops. You can walk into Japan airport and see a bottle of Balcones sitting there. That's cool. That's different, right? And I'm not trying to talk about this, but nowadays with the tariffs that we have and the things, I don't know how it is now, but I know when I went to, I haven't been out of the country a lot recently. We went to, where did we go? Cabo San Lucas for my wife and I's 20th anniversary. Yeah, we've been married for longer than that now, but we were married for 20 years. And we said, we're going to go and we're going to have a good time. We brought our kids. That's a whole other story. But I said, I'm going to go to the duty-free shop, see what they got. Well, they didn't have much. Cabo, smaller place. People getting tequila. That's what they're getting, right? So they did have a scotch, though. And it was a Glenlivet Triple Wood. Never seen it before. It was a 1-liter bottle. And once I opened it, I couldn't take it back on a plane, so it stayed in the hotel. I did not finish the bottle. I did enjoy a couple of pours. Please go look back at my Instagram. It's from like 2.5 years ago, or 3 years ago. Go look back at my Instagram. It actually opened up really nice. It was nice, neat pour. But that just goes back to these airport exclusives. They're pretty nice if you can find a good one. Now, of course, there was like Johnny Walker Red and Blue and all of the things, but like I wanted something a little bit. I have a hair in my mouth. I gotta find it. There it is. My wife gave me a haircut today, and I haven't showered yet because like I know I was gonna be in the shed, and I gotta cook some steaks later, so I don't want to like shower twice. Does that make sense? Call me cochino. That's fine, but. I'll be a little itchy. It'll be fine. But I had to get this cut done, dude. It was I was looking bad. So consumers began to recognize American Single Malt as a category. But education was still needed. And that's what we're here for. On this show, we are all about education. We don't dumb it down. We move it forward. American Single Malt can be smoky without peat. Texas mesquite gives a barbecue note. So I'm going to caveat right now. I wasn't going to, but I'm going to because I don't care. It's my show. Okay, so in this hand is another Texas Single Malt, but this one has a sticker on the side of it, and I've already done a video for this, so go look on my YouTube for this. This one, the best small batch Single Malt in the world. This is none other than Andalusia Striker Madeira finished. Now, why am I pulling Striker out? Just a touch, guys. Come on, we're not being a lush here. Why am I pulling Striker out? Well, because I want you guys to know that even though Andalusia and Balcones are about 1.5 hours away from each other, 2 hours away from each other, they're completely different. Now, this one is Madeira finished, whereas this one is PX finished. This one is smoked with mesquite, applewood, and live oak. So it has a barbecue note on it. I've already done a full. Just go look at it. All right, let's get into this one. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's burning brisket with some jam on it. That's what it is. I sound like Theo Vaughn. Man, that's really nice. This one's only 58% alcohol. Man, it's so smoky and nice. And the smoke isn't harsh. It's just there. It's voluptuous. You know, you got to treat it like a lady. But yet it has a little bit of a bite to it. It has a little, I don't want to say acridness. I almost said acridness, but I don't want to say acridness. It has a little something to it to where it's like, you know, you're drinking it. Whereas in comparison, let's compare and contrast. I got to scoot back like, oh, man, my back hurts, dude. I've been working freaking hard. These past couple of weeks have kicked my butt. I'm not going to lie. And this it's my show. I can do whatever I want. Shut up. I'm trying to like talk myself out of talking about stuff, whatever. Doesn't matter. Like, I have been working really hard, which is great. I'm glad to be busy. I'm glad to be doing what, if you guys don't know, I'm a master plumber by trade, work by myself. But during the summer, my son, he's been helping me. He's only 12. He's not even legally allowed to write down his hours, but he was able to make enough money over the, and this is for all the, not that this is a 21 plus show, but for your children, he was able to work with me and make enough money to buy the brand new Switch 2. Absolutely. In 2.5 months. I paid him accordingly, what I thought. And he was excited about it. Of course, we did chip in a little bit. You know, we're not hooligans, right? But he worked hard. That kid worked hard. You should have seen him. You know, he's what, 100 pounds maybe. We were working on a water softener. And I told him, I said, hey, go get those bags of salt, right? You know, 40, 50 pound bag of salt. He was struggling, brother, but he did it. He did not complain. He did not moan. He did not, you know what I mean? He didn't say nothing. He just did it. He struggled on the first one, but then he got smarter. Then he got smarter on the next one. It was 4 bags. So, I mean, he had to do it a number of times, and it was at the back of the truck. He had to take it all the way into the house. Like it was, I didn't talk to him. I told him, don't bend with your back, bend with your legs, you know, that sort of thing. I don't want him to hurt himself, but at the same time, I want him to sweat. I want him to get that sweat equity into what he does, because not to be that guy, but there's a lot of people out there right now that haven't put the sweat equity back into their job. They just want to get their check and go to the house. Well, that's not me. You're going to work for what you get. And there was even a time where I felt, oh, he's my son. I need to chill. Now, I treat him during working hours. He is a tool in my tool belt. That's what Caitlin Barley said to me. A tool in my tool belt. I use him. I don't abuse him, but every day I would buy him a soda. I would buy him a taco or whatever, you know. So like, he's fine, okay? And pay him on top of it. Let him bring his iPad for when we were driving around. He could, you know, play on his iPad in the air conditioning. Like, he's fine. But he did work hard for a 12-year-old boy, helping his dad crawl underneath the house, pulling water heaters out of, you know, doing all the things. He worked hard. And so we helped him out a little bit on getting his Switch. And he is so freaking out. He's not working with me. Next week is the last week of summer. He's not working with me because, you know, I want him to have a little bit of summer, right? He almost worked with me every day. So like, I wanted him to have a little bit of time. He didn't work on Fridays. That was the only time he didn't work, was on Fridays. Because, you know, you want them to be a kid too, right? Because I don't want my kid to grow up and be like, Dad, you worked me too hard. Like, you suck. And, you know, I never got a summer, which I never got a summer either. Like, I was always working, but it's different times right now. So cheers. All right. Let me get back to my notes. So Texas Mesquite gives more of a barbecue note. Westland's Garyana uses native Pacific Northwest oak species rarely seen in whiskey. Some distilleries finished in craft beer barrels, stouts, porters, IPAs. Barley grown in Montana will taste different than barley grown in Washington due to soil and climate and whiskey terroir. And that is what we talked about when we talked to Joe over at Minden Mill. He was saying our whiskey is going to taste different. Doesn't matter. You can have the same freaking barley. It's not going to taste the same. You know why? Because of terroir. And I will fight you for that. I will fight you. All right. Let's talk about the future of American Single Malt. Are you ready? Will there be a regional style map like Scotland's Highlands, Islay, Speyside, you know, the rest? We did 5 episodes on Scotch. I think there should be. I mean, crap, you could regionalize Texas. You could. And like with the Texas Whiskey Trail, they did. And I think that would be very suiting. Because think about this. Pacific Northwest is not going to be the same as the New England states. It's just the variance is too different. And whiskey in Montana, and I'm not just talking American Single Malt, I'm saying whiskey in general. Whiskey in Montana is not going to taste the same as whiskey in Tucson, right? It's just not. Louisiana rice whiskey isn't going to taste the same as, a Minnesota far north rye whiskey. It's just, they're totally different. I know they're different grains and all that. I'm trying to make a point here, guys. Come on. Get on the bus. What bus are we on? Anyway. There's already big brands like Beam Suntory, Brown-Forman entering into this category. Here's the thing, and I'm okay with it. I will say that right now. I'm okay with the heritage brands coming in and saying we make a single malt too. Now, the one that potentially could scare me would be Beam Suntory. Suntory being a Japanese whiskey, amazing, absolutely fantastic Japanese whiskey brand. So there's that. But they have to make it in America, correct? So the terroir, everything's going to be different. When you're making single malt in the middle of Kentucky, it's not going to taste like Yamazaki. It's not. There's no way you can make it taste like Yamazaki. So just understand that. But I'm all about the big guys coming in, doing their thing, making their whiskey the way they want to make it. Because they've been making bourbon for so long. They've been making it well. And now we're catching up on bourbon, right? America, besides Kentucky. Everybody else is catching up on bourbon, like Holiday and Oregon Spirits. There's a bunch of bourbon, a lot of Texas guys, bourbon guys out there that are playing catch up to the big dogs. Well, now the tables aren't turned because they have all the money in the world to do what they want to do. But the big guys are now having to play catch up to the American Single Malt guys that have been doing it since the 80s. So when you come in there and you're like, they probably were like, that's not even a thing. That's not a thing. It's going to fall by. It's fine. We're going to make our bourbon. It'll be fine. We'll put it in a port barrel. They'll love it. It's fine. They're dummies over there. They don't know what they're drinking anyway. So I don't care that they entered the category. Now, they might be producing amazing stuff, and I will put that on a pedestal, but I will tell you right now, from what I have had, and this is no diss, Claremont Steep is not great whiskey. Yeah, so there's that. I would rather drink a 2-year-old American Single Malt from Texas than Claremont Steep all day long. Could American Single Malt one day outsell Scotch domestically? Possibly. The only reason I would say no to that question is Scotch has the heritage. People know I want to go get this Macallan 12. Macallan 12 is great. It's going to taste like Macallan 12. The issue with craft spirits is the flavor drift and consistency. They try, but it is batch distilled, whereas they are distilling hundreds of thousands of liters of whiskey at the same time and blending hundreds of barrels at the same time. So when you have a craft distillery like Balcones or even Andalusia, this was a 4-barrel blend, 4 barrels, 800 bottles, something like that. Macallan does a 10,000 barrel blend, right? We are not the same. So just understand that. Like, will it compete? Yes, I think it will for the craft consumer. The Scotch guy is always going to be the Scotch guy, and I'm the Scotch guy. But don't think that ASM is going to come in and just knock Scotch off its pedestal. It's not going to happen. Not in the near future. Maybe in 20 more years, maybe. Because these brands that are making American Single Malt in America right now are knocking it out of the park. They're doing an absolutely fantastic job. You know what I mean? Everybody from Cedar Ridge to Hinterhouse, right? All of them are doing absolutely fantastic work. I can name 10 American Single Malt distilleries on, right now that are just killing it. Absolutely killing it. So maybe, but not anytime soon. There's ongoing innovation with American Single Malt, though, which heritage barley strains, and that's what some of these distilleries like Minden Mill, they're trying to find heritage barley strains, heritage rye, heritage corn strains, exotic woods, and fermentation experiments. So I've already talked about this in the past, and I'll talk about it again because I have to beat a dead horse, I guess. See, the craft whiskey, the American Single Malt, started with the brewing industry. And so the brewers knew about sanitation. They knew about yeast strains. They knew about flocculation and congeners and all the things. Whereas the distillers from Scotland or even Kentucky used a commodity grain, a commodity house-made yeast, and they made a product. They made the same product over and over again, and that was it. Whereas craft beer, you have seasonal recipes where you're using this seasonal red winter wheat in your beer, right? So when all of that happens, you get a regionality and you get a seasonality to American Single Malt as well. Maybe we want to try this same recipe with 20% toasted malt or honey malt or biscuit or whatever. It's the same thing. It's just a little bit different, but we have to let it age. And so you come off with these one-off variations that are probably amazing, but they don't fit in the SKU, right? So that's where the single barrels like this one came in, which who wouldn't want a 6.5-year-old PX sherry finished or fully matured single malt? You have to know what you're getting into, obviously, but so I have a blank piece of paper. It's blank. Didn't print off. Great. Okay. I already said that. No. Sorry. Bear with me, guys. I already said all this. Okay, so I've already said all the things that I was going to say that I had wrote down. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about is let's talk about tasting. When you are tasting an American Single Malt, it is like any other whiskey, right? But it's not. American Single Malt can be delicate. It can be very nuanced in its flavor because the broadness that malt brings to the table is threefold, if not more, of what a bourbon recipe could give you, because there's so many things there, and they are in new oak, and they're, the proof is high and all the things. So when you drink American Single Malt, especially, you have to go into it knowing what you're getting. So when you're tasting it, you need to say, okay, well, I don't have that much more left, so I'm going to do just a smidge so I can do my tasting. So I know that this is a single malt. I can barely see through the glass. It's so dark. I know that going into it, it's not going to taste like a bourbon. It's not going to taste like a rye whiskey. And just being mentally aware of that. But also looking at the label and seeing that it's Boldness whiskey, knowing that it's going to be bold. It's going to have a smoky note, even though it's not smoky. It's almost like burnt molasses or something like that. It's a very unique profile that I get from all Boldness distilled products. It's just the way that they do it. It's their proprietary yeast. It's their distillation method. It's something. It is like sticky molasses that has been a little over molassesized. Ooh, that's a big word. So let's get into it. I'm going to give you a couple tasting notes on this, and then we will move on. Okay. On the nose, it is super oily. You know it's oily, but it has this red fruit. It is almost strawberry, but I would not be surprised if it wasn't like Luxardo cherry, like those cherries that are just super, almost sickeningly sweet. It has that, and then molasses, brown sugar, the caramel, but it's like burnt toffee, sticky toffee pudding, monkey bread, has a little spice to it even. Let's get it on the taste. It is a reduction, a sherry reduction. It is so thick, so viscous. The proof is hot. 67.7. Like, that's a high mama. It is just enveloping my tongue with the maltiness is there, but it almost gets overtaken by the sherry. The sherry. It's almost like you're drinking a glass of sherry. Seriously. The finish lingers with the proof, but it also lingers with this malty sweetness and slight apple note. So I'm going to do like my boys over at the Chill Filter podcast do. I was just on their show recently. Please go check it out. We drank a 1983 Wild Turkey. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you, Cole, so much for letting me hang out. I was going to post it in my podcast, but I decided not to. If you want to do it, go watch theirs. They do way better at editing and things like that, so it's probably better quality over there anyway. So I am going to get this. I'm going to go back into it. There's like a dribble in the glass left. I'm going to rate this how they rate it. This is a 9.2. I'm doing both Cole and Brian's because I don't know. I don't know how to do either one, so I'm doing both. I'm going to do a 9.2. There is nothing there that turns me away. It is sherry forward, but the maltiness that is the backbone of it is carrying the sherry as well. And it gives it a depth and perception that you're not just drinking sherry, right? There's something else there other than sherry. Just understand that. But also the sweetness that's there from the malt. It comes through. So yeah, 9.2. A, not an A minus, just an A. There is nothing here that I would be turned off about. It will not get lost in the cabinet for sure. You try this, you know you've had this. It is a unique barreling. It is a single barrel. That's freaking awesome. It is from a cool distillery doing cool things. Wholly matured in PX sherry casks. What else can I say? The reason it doesn't have higher marks is because of the sherry influence. I would like a little bit more nuance and the proof. The proof is hot. I did not do the water and ice thing with it because, I didn't. I'm not going to even do it. It's fine. It's a great whiskey. I recommend if you find a single barrel wine finished Balcones Texas 1 single malt. I don't know why it's called Texas 1, whatever. Pick it up. It's really good, especially at cast strength. I know they do have some that are like 53, which 53 is still a very reasonable proof point. So if you find it, great. Okay, so now we're going to move on to our next segment of the show. All right, we are doing malt news. Yes, I decided this spur of the moment to do a news section. Whatever. So one of the things that came up was Hogback peated smoked single malt whiskey from Colorado scored 96.39, placing fourth overall in the International Whiskey Competition 2025. That is awesome. Up North Distilling in Idaho is celebrating the recent federal recognition of the American Single Malt protected category, positioning it well futures grow amidst all of their honey-based spirits. So they are starting to make single malt now. New Riff, they're a bourbon distillery, correct? No. New Riff Distilling announced their 2025 single malt whiskey at 115.2 proof, mash bill featuring Maris Otter, peated barley, and beer-inspired blends in a diverse array of cask finishing, including Madeira, Oloroso sherry, red wine, and various oak treatments. Yes, please, let me have some of that. This is they're not legacy. New Riff isn't legacy, but they're doing some pretty freaking cool things. Their malted rye whiskey, it's absolutely fantastic. Yeah. So that's all I got for this week. That didn't take long. Now I'll be the first to tell you. American Single Malt isn't for everybody. It's not. And that's fine. But I will also say that, sorry, I'm shuffling papers instead of talking. Sorry, I'm an idiot sometimes. I will also say that American Single Malt is a truly American spirit. And it's based upon innovation and craftsmanship. No, it's really based upon people doing cool things. We just talked to Mark over at Del Bach, Whiskey Del Bach, doing Tucson, Sonoran Desert smoked single malts. That's what kind of got me into this mood, single malt mood. They are doing some absolutely fantastic things, and guess what? They don't care what you think. They're going to do them, and people are going to like it or they're not. And that's fine. You want a typical Scotch? Go buy typical Scotch. You want a Scotch like something? There are some offerings out there that American Single Malt people are doing that are Scotch like. There are some peated ones. There are some smoky ones. There are some highly, more like Highland style Scotches. Yeah, they're out there. But I feel like this American Single Malt is kind of a rebellion in a certain way, because it's showing that, like, we don't have to conform to this 51% corn. Yeah, there has to be 100% malted barley. It's the same. I get it. But they were going to do that anyway. If you're making single malt, that's what it is. So it's a little bit of a rebellious pull on what a whiskey is. Is it still whiskey? Absolutely. Is it going to take over bourbon? No, probably not. Is it a cool alternative for something different? Absolutely. So the next time you go to the store and you're looking for a good whiskey to drink, think about some of the American Single Malts that we've talked about on this show. Or think about trying something new, something I haven't even had, which I'm not going to say I've had every whiskey there is. There's so many out there. I've had enough. And I've liked enough. And I'm going to throw this out there like I always do. Find a craft distillery close next to you. Whatever they're doing, it's got to be something cool. And it's particular to your specific area. If you're in the middle of Virginia, or if you're in Hawaii, I'm sure there's a cool distillery next to you. Because wherever there's people, they want to drink. That's just how it is. So the next time you go on vacation, try a craft distillery. Even if it's at a bar, even if it's at a restaurant. Hey, what's your local spirit? That's what you could say. It might not be a whiskey, but at least you're trying the terroir of that area. And I mean to say that when you go overseas or anywhere. Some absolutely fantastic Taiwanese and Indian whiskeys out there. So don't just get stuck in a rut, drinking the same old thing that your dad drank. Try something a little different. And if you're going to try something different, why don't you try American Single Malt? Because I feel like you'll be pleasantly surprised. Now, it's not for everyone. The smoke could get you. The maltiness could be a turnoff for you. But if you give it a chance, you might just see that it opens your eyes to a whole new world. I'm trying to be storytelling. I don't know. Man, whatever. Sometimes I feel like I'm fully an idiot. I don't know how you feel like listening to this, but I feel like I'm idiotic sometimes. There's something sticky on my hand, and it's gross. It's poop or chocolate, one of the two. Anywho, all right, guys. That was just a little talk about American Single Malt and everything that American Single Malt is doing. You guys already know. If you've been following me for a minute, you know I love American Single Malt, and I would continue to love them. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed this. If you do, 5-star reviews are great. I've got quite a few of them. Actually, I need to go and read some of them, so I might do that on the next episode. I will put a note down, and we will try and do that. Actually, we are going to do it now. All right, I found them. Now, this is just on Apple. So Apple is a lot easier for me to access. I'm not going to do the one from 2 years ago. But thank you, TX Holland guy. I will do one from 1 year ago, though, because I have not checked these, and I'm sorry. So this is from Iceman. If you guys know Iceman 25K. He can't cook, I heard. Anyway, I found this podcast recently, and by far the best podcast I've found in 2024. Catching up on backlog now and continue learning something new and informative. 5 stars. Great knowledge. All right, so February of 25, Mellow and Easy Going by Bry Rap. If you know who you are, Brian. Good vibes on the show. Great tone of voice. Pleasant to listen to. Love the enthusiasm about whiskey and your sense of humor too. If I have anything, it's a sense of humor and a smell of humor. No, that's humorous. I'm sorry. In June 28th of this year by Richard Muse. Game and Grains. Go follow him on YouTube. He's a supporter of the show. I appreciate him so much. A must follow. 5 stars. Passionate, curious, knowledgeable. The love of whiskey and the desire to learn is evident in every episode. The Whiskey Shaman does a great job of interviewing craft distilleries, master distillers, and owners. Cannot recommend this podcast enough. Thank you guys so much for all of the reviews. There are more, but we got to go. My computer battery is low. So that's a good reason for me to go and get. I appreciate you all for hanging out with me. I know this was a little bit different. It was off the wall, but ever since I talked to Mark over at Del Bach, it got me thinking about American Single Malt and how it's a thing and people are doing it, and you should be in on it. And if you're not, I understand. If you want to listen to the bourbon episodes, cool. We have some of those in the future. I'm working on some of those in the future. I'm hoping. But I hope that you guys can find a cool American Single Malt, sit down and have a drink of it, maybe listen to this podcast. How about that? At least do that for me. If you're going to listen to this podcast and you're not driving or working or whatever, if you're sitting down after a long, hard day and you want to listen to a soothing voice, listen to this podcast, pour you an American Single Malt, and just sit there and relax. Because that's all I'm doing. We're just hanging out, two dudes hanging out, or dudette, whatever you are. We don't discriminate around here, of course. So if you're into that, please follow, like, subscribe, do all the algorithmy things. It really does help this show. And if you want video of this, if you want before the scenes exclusives, go to Patreon, patreon.com/The Whiskey Shaman. And it'll be hooking you up, brother. We just got a new one in today. Sample pack going out hopefully this next week. And I appreciate all of my patrons, and you'll get shout outs on 142. So just understand that. Love y'all. Y'all be good. And until next time, drink American Single Malt.